28 life. Seth Manfield is at 12. Looks like Seth has a very useful Nyx Fleece Ram in play. Couple of lands here. A Jace that's on 2. Kemple with 6 lands in play. Not entirely sure how many cards he has in his hand at this point, but it looks like Seth is taking control. Kemple is going to fire off a Stoke the Flames here. Manfield's going to consult his hand. Got 3 mana. This feels like a dissolve perhaps, and it will be. So Seth will scry. Again, Kemple up a game here, as we kind of expected him to be, but the sideboarded games are very, very difficult.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, Kemple does have things like Chandra Pyromaster to outpace that Nyx Fleece Ram, but assuming the Ram is just in play starting on turn 2, and the games do go long, you know, it's a burn deck, but it's not a super fast burn deck, and you don't really want to just unload all your burn spells as soon as possible and walk into the blue-white deck's counter spells. It's often better to just save up for like a big turn, overload the blue-white deck's, like the blue-white control deck's mana, and try and get them that way, but...
It's a lightning strike that's going upstairs, targeting Manfield. And it looks like this one may resolve, as we're being told right now that Daniel Snow, green-white aggro, is moving on to the semifinals. Dispatches Calhoun playing Mono Black Devotion. So Snow will play the winner of Jund Planeswalkers and Black Blue Devotion, Michael Finney versus Steve Rubin. A Sphinx's Revelation will be cast here. It'll be for 4, so Manfield will get 4 new cards and 4 life. You do see a Temple of Triumph.
Kemple had the Skullcrack.
Oh, do you see it? I did not see the Skullcrack, so thank you. No 4 life. Ignore me. But Seth does get 4 new cards.
Yeah, he gets 4 new cards, untaps, gains another life with the Ram, and things are getting kind of out of control here for Kemple. I think like that was the window he needed, was like you get to Skullcrack, the Sphinx's Revelation to stop the life gain, and then you need to untap and play 2 4-point burn spells to finish him off, but he didn't have it.
You see Seth does take up the Jace. He does have a copy of Fiendslayer Paladin that he's going to deploy this turn. There's a Plains. Seth may have to discard here, which isn't the worst world to be in.
No, absolutely not.
So there goes the Temple of Enlightenment. Kemple's going to untap. Time for him to draw a card. We think Seth might have upkeep effects. Maybe another Rev here.
Yeah, might just want to fire off another Baby Revelation.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. Looks like it's just going to be for 3.
Yeah, and then that should give him a nice little buffer to allow him to live through this turn, and then he has the Ram and the Fiendslayer gaining him life every turn.
Yeah, so up to 11 goes Manfield. Kemple's got 2 lands. He's going to concede the game, so we're going to head to a third one here between Seth Manfield and Christopher Kemple. We'll take a look at the sideboards here in just a moment as well. Again, I remember for this matchup from yesterday, Kemple did not have very much to board in at all. A lot of his sideboard cards are dedicated to, other aggressive decks. I imagine that coming into this tournament, he wanted to be able to beat Rabble Red. And this deck is actually quite good against that matchup.
Yeah, his deck does that pretty well. Have you ever cast Searing Blood on a Fire Drinker Satyr?
I want to. I want to. Kemple sideboard here, 3 Chain to the Rocks. He's got 3 Chandra Pyromaster, a Searing Blood, 4 copies of Nyx Fleece Ram, then 4 copies of Satyr Fire Dancer. Yesterday we saw basically just Chandra come in. Though, you could make the argument again that Seth is boarding in creatures, so maybe Chain to the Rocks is good.
He's got the deck list.
Yeah.
He knows. Plus he played against Seth yesterday. You see how often Seth has that Nyx Fleece Ram. You saw him cast a Fiendslayer Paladin. He played Archangel of Thune. At what point do you bring in Chain to the Rocks? Like those are the cards that are beating you, right? Like he knows that his game 1 matchup is already pretty good.
Yep.
And it's the sideboard cards that are beating him. So I feel like you have to sideboard in such a way to counteract his sideboard.
I think I agree with you there. I mean, Chain to the Rocks is not sexy in this matchup, but I mean, getting a Nyx Fleece Ram off the table, Nyx Fleece Ram is really annoying.
It is.
Just gaining a life every turn. I feel like to beat Nyx Fleece Ram, you have to resolve a Chandra and just like keep upping it to counteract what the Ram does. And there's no guarantee that you're going to do that when your opponent's deck has Detention Sphere, it has Syncopate and Dissolve and Negate. Like, it's tough to do, I think.
Yeah, I agree completely. I wouldn't be surprised to see 2 Chain of the Rocks come in, or even all 3, just because he knows that You know, Seth has 6 total creatures that he can chain to the rocks. The Archangels, like, he can kill in other ways. You know, he has the 4-point burn spells, and that's fine. But if you're boarding in, like, 3 removal spells that kill his 6 creatures, and those are probably Seth's best cards in the matchup, I think that is fine.
Seth's got the 8 creatures. He's also got Deicide, 2 Dispels, a Faded Retribution, 2 Gainsays, and a Negate. So, you know, he's got the 8 creatures. I expect to see the 2 Dispels, so that's 9 and 10, and the Negate's spell number 11.
Yeah.
And, I mean, his sideboarding is pretty straightforward as far as what's coming in. Not entirely sure what's coming out besides probably Supreme Verdict.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you want to take out all the verdicts because Kemple does have Young Pyromancer and you can't really let that get out of control. But at the same time, Seth also has a lot of ways to brick wall the little elementals between like Nyx Fleece Ram and Fiendslayer Paladin, Detention Sphere, stuff like that. So also Jace is a pretty good one. So he has a decent amount of answers aside from Verdict, but I'm not sure if he'd be willing to bring out all of them. Although it's like, if you're trying to stabilize behind a Ram and a Fiendslayer, you don't really want Supreme Verdict at that point anyway. So that would be fine. Aetherling seems like not really what you want to be doing.
A touch slow. A
little too slow. You don't really want to tap out and just like give them that window to light you up, right? Jace's Ingenuity, another pretty slow card. I'm not sure if he wants to shave on any copies of Dissolve. They're generally pretty good, but after seeing Kemple play, even just a few games, like you know that guy is not going to walk into your counter spells, right?
Unless he wants to.
Unless he wants to, exactly, and then you're probably in trouble.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure like stockpiling Dissolves is the best way to handle this matchup. You do have some cheaper counter spells on the sideboard, and I might just want to go with those.
I expect to see the Elspeth on the board too, like for the same reason that Aetherling's gone.
Yep.
Elspeth can close things out pretty quickly, but again, I don't think you want to tap 6 mana on your own turn in this particular matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I think Seth's game plan is to use a Revelation for 3 or 4 cards to gain that life, to give him a buffer, untap, kind of deal with whatever Kemple has in play, whether it's like a Chandra or a Chandra's Phoenix or what have you, and just kind of like use that life to buy time to be able to like play a bigger Revelation, maybe with the spell backup for Skullcrack. And once you fire off like a Revelation for 10, the game is basically over.
Yeah.
How you kill them is kind of irrelevant. You probably don't need something like Elspeth or Aetherling at the top of your curve. So something like a Fiendslayer Paladin and a Mutavault or 2, like that's good enough.
Well, Kemple's going to be on the play for game number 3. Again, play versus draw in this matchup I don't think is huge just because the games do take a little while, but we'll see how things do break. Again, the winner of this match will be playing against Jared Betcher. I'm not sure how Jared feels about either one of these matchups. Like, I think that Burn can be difficult for him. I think that a very skilled blue-white player can be pretty difficult for him, and that's exactly what Manfield is. So we'll see what happens in our semifinals because we're going to be staying with Betcher as far as coverage is concerned.
Yeah, I can't imagine like Seth or Kemple would be unhappy about playing against a mono black deck, but Jared is kind of the end boss at this point.
Yeah, for sure. You can see behind Seth, Steve Rubin and Michael Finney are still doing battle there. So again, when we do have an update for you guys on what's happening in that match, we will let you know. Daniel Snow will be playing the winner of that match. And we will watch Jared Betcher during our semifinals, see if he can keep this thing going. Maybe win back-to-back standard opens with his Black Blue Devotion deck.
That doesn't count for my record, right?
No.
Okay, great.
No, you're good.
Just making sure.
You're good. Have you won back-to-back standard opens, though?
I don't know. Probably not, but maybe.
Okay.
Cobblade was really good to me. Just going to throw that out there. That deck was good.
I'm really glad that was my hiatus of Magic.
Yeah.
It did not look very fun.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I'm probably wrong. Like, you probably had a blast playing that deck.
I did have a lot of fun. And I traveled every weekend. That was super cool also, but it's a little tougher to do that when, you know, my deck is not as powerful as Cobblade. It's like, oh, I lost again. I played bad, and I didn't win it anyway. That's
Jace,
weird.
There's no Jace to save me.
Yeah, exactly.
That deck, come on.
It was something else.
That, looking back, you know, I know there was I can't remember the guy's name. I always forget his name. The guy who always played vampires and won.
Landstrom.
Yeah,
Matt
Landstrom. Yeah. There was just one guy who was just like, I'm just going to play vampires. And he always did really well with it.
Yeah.
And, like, no one else did. And he would win tournaments and just work his way through Cobblade decks. But besides Cobblade, there was, like, some people who would play Mono Red and Landstrom who played vampires, and there was just nothing else.
There was, like, some Valakut decks, you know.
There were people trying to play Valakut, yes.
Sure.
And I'm not told they were very good. I don't have a great memory of, you know, that like 9-month stretch because I wasn't playing then. That's my only break I've ever taken from Magic.
Not a ton of variety.
No. You could splash a different color in your Cobblade deck.
That's true, and I did that.
You dabbled.
I was like, I need something different. I want to spice it up a little bit.
You ever splash green?
It's a long story.
Ooh.
We don't have time for this.
No? Okay, all right. I know you splashed black and red. You had some Spark Mages at one point. Black gave you disc?
Yeah, some Inquisition and Kozilek.
Okay, okay. Not sure what green gave you. We're going to have to talk about that over breakfast. It sounds like not very much.
I went a little too deep. I'll just say that.
No.
I tend to do that.
No. You?
Yeah. It was a weak moment for me.
I want to see what your fun of is going to be next weekend when you play Charlotte's Bug. I imagine there will be one or two.
I did have Josh Cho play a Typhoid Rats in the Standard Open yesterday.
You did. Yeah, you did. But it was good, apparently.
So it's like a Doomblade, right? But it's also a Crusade for your Pack Rats.
Yep. It's
and
like a Doomblade is strong. Like a Crusade is fine.
Tell me how much like Doomblade it is against Loxodon Smiter.
Well,
that's a Doomblade.
It is like a Doomblade against them. They can't attack with it.
All I'm going to say is Cho is skeptical. I want him to play a second one on the sideboard. He said absolutely not.
I like the 1-1 split.
Right.
Okay.
It's correct. 100% correct. And then he was like, no, absolutely not. And then at the end of maybe round 2, he was like, I wish I had the second one on my sideboard, man. I was like, we did it.
The old 1-1 Death Touch.
And that is some Conrad Kolos technology for you out there who might know Conrad.
Oh, you didn't think of that.
Yeah. Huh?
You didn't think of that. That's Conrad. Okay.
I have thought about it at various points, but I never pulled the trigger. And then it is usually one other person that is like, hey, man, it's okay to play Typhoid Rats. And I'm like, that's it. That's all I need. You're the validation.
It's in. Let's play. Played on turn 1. Oh, man. Brick wall. It's a Temple of Triumph to start game number 3 here for Christopher Kemple. That card is going to stay on top. Pass the turn back over to Manfield. Both players did keep 7 cards. Seth looked like he wanted to play a Plains. He's going to play an Island instead and pass the turn back.
Well, it's good news. We see Seth with both Island and Plains.
Yeah, big for game 3. Didn't have that the last time they played.
Very, very important.
Another Temple of Triumph here. Going to leave this card on top of Will Kemple before passing it back to Manfield. Manfield with the Plains, and there's the Ram. Not a surprise, has 4 of those after sideboard. 3 mana, Phoenix in the air. Manfield going to go down to 18 momentarily.
That's certainly a good answer to Nyx Fleece Ram. And, you know, we were talking about the play draw maybe not mattering as much, but allowing him to get Chandra's Phoenix in play under something like Syncopate is pretty important. And especially now, it forces Seth to react. You know, he needs a Last Breath or a Detention Sphere. And then maybe Kemple can drop like a Chandra or something. But he has the tools to outpace the Ram. Maybe not necessarily in his hand, but they do exist.
Kemple expecting a Detention Sphere here on the Phoenix.
Or maybe he's saying, please Detention Sphere my Phoenix, you know?
All right. Let's see if Kemple can actually take advantage of this. Does he have a Chandra to play? You see his hand, it looks like he's got double Boros Charm. He's gonna fire up a Mutavault, dare Seth to block. I like this attack. It's a 2-2 to 05. Come on.
Yeah, who wins this fight?
Yeah.
Sheep, obviously. Yeah, this is one of the spots where Nyx Fleece Ram is supposed to be good, right? It's supposed to hold off these 2-2s, but the danger of losing it to a Lightning Strike is just, you know, you don't want to give up the potential like 6 life that this thing is going to give you, but instead you're just taking his from Mutavault.
Yeah, the likelihood of that thing blocking is so low there that I love the attack.
Right. And Kemple does have the Lightning Strike, but still, it's like if you're in Seth's spot, you don't want to risk that.
Yeah, you probably need that Ram. The Ram makes the game so much easier that you'll take 2 at that point.
Yeah, Kemple does such a good job of, I don't know, just like doing everything correctly, like making sure that he doesn't miss out on those points of damage. And I feel like if he didn't have the Lightning Strike, he would just attack there anyway. You know, he could potentially spend his mana on other things, but he's like, no, attacking is correct.
The thing too is it's a weird thing to say, but he attacks with confidence.
Yeah.
Like the way he fires, he's like, all right, attack with Mutavault. Like, you're not blocking.
Right.
We both know that.
Just attacks, reaches for the pen.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Here's a Phoenix in the air. Manfield gonna go down to 12, up to 13. Kemple slowly chipping away. Now notice Seth's lands. 1 Island, 1 Plains, 2 Mutavaults. He had mana issues before where he kept kind of a sketcher. He kept all white cards. He's got some small mana issues here. Now there's a Banishing Light to get that off the table. So he's actually got some pretty healthy answers.
Yeah.
Kemple's considering firing off a Lightning Strike here. But if he does that, then his ability to take away the ram goes away. Now, maybe a bit of a misstep on how he tapped the mana, because he has Boros Charm in his hand, but he can't cast it now. Picked up a Skull Crack for the turn. And we're going to see the Mutavault attack again. He's going to snap him off this time.
Yeah, maybe now has something like negate. And this is one of the spots where you don't really want to be in as the burn players.
Yeah.
Seth has 2 mana open, and you don't really want to spend your turn and allow the control player to use their mana efficiently on your turn, especially when he only has 1 blue mana.
Yeah, this is a spot, and here's an Azorius Charm on the Mutavault. That's a spot there where, like, if Seth doesn't have the Azorius Charm, like, I'm just like, okay, like, my Mutavault runs into the ram, okay, go.
Yeah.
Like, you blocked, and, you know, that sucks because you didn't block last time, but that's fine. Like, I'm not going to try to fire off my Lightning Strike to finish off the ram because of, like, Dispel and Negate being cards that he could have. And I know that after sideboards have the deck list. And so I would just move forward.
Yeah, so then maybe you don't even attack that turn. And, like, end of turn, Seth's at 13. Kemple has, I think, 4 burn spells in his hand. And maybe it's at that point where you start firing them off.
This is the opportunity for him to fire off a Boros Charm.
Yeah.
I think that what he's a little scared of right now is if I do that, and he's going to, he puts him down to 9, then Seth's going to go back to 10, but now the Skull Crack window's down.
Yeah, it is.
And so that's maybe that's why that attack is bad.
Sure.
Seth's going to draw a card. Now, Seth doesn't have double blue.
No.
So he can't cast a Rev yet.
But he's got a handful of stuff. Sphinx's Revelation is certainly among the things that he might not have been able to cast this game.
It's a 3rd Mutavault. Mutavault's a great card, but it does have a cost. Oh, we get a little frisky. In for 4.
Yeah, sometimes you don't have anything else really left to do.
Yeah. Mutavault's going to come off the top for Kemple. Just puts it directly into play. And you can see his hand. He's got a War Leader. He looks over there. Got that Lightning Strike he's had for some time. He's trying to chip away here at Manfield. Of course, can't attack with Mutavault this turn. But Kemple's trying to figure out, okay, the shields are kind of down. Do I fire something now, or do I wait?
Yeah, could have negate, could have dispel. Should I try and attack again?
Well, he can't. Mutavault's sick.
Oh, well, then probably not.
So do not activate that. I thought the same thing a minute ago. Do not do that. Kemple's just going to pass the turn back. Manfield's going to go to 11. Seth maybe thinking Mutavaults again.
It's tough when your end game is very much trying to fire off these Sphinx's Revelations. You're almost certainly not going to win the damage race, and now Kemple has 5 open mana, including a Mutavault of his own. It's really tough to like try and jam those in there, but if Seth thinks this game is going poorly for him, then I feel like that's certainly a reasonable thing to do.
It's an attack here for 2. There's a Temple of Enlightenment, so there's a second blue source. Manfield going to leave that card on top, pass the turn back. I imagine we're going to see some sort of spell here from Kemple. He's going to go with the War Leader's Helix. Seth has a Dispel.
And now the shields are down for Seth.
Yes. Boros Charm the draw. Do you like a Mutavault attack on this turn where there's a Mutavault back on defense?
Not especially. I don't think it accomplishes much. It's like Seth probably won't block with the Ram. He'll probably try and block with a Mutavault, and you don't really want to trade your Mutavault for his Mutavault. I feel like Kemple's best bet might be to try and upkeep Skullcrack him to not gain the 1 life, but maybe he wants to wait on that. But I do feel like within this turn or the next turn, he's going to want to try and start firing off burn spells, because it's at this point where like the Ram actually starts to outpace him.
Yep. I think he's starting to realize that too.
Yeah, I mean, he has 10 points of burn in his hand. Seth is at 11. He basically needs to draw a burn spell, and if he doesn't, if he draws a land or a creature in the next couple turns that can't get through the Ram and the Mutavaults, then Seth is eventually going to have a pretty high life buffer, and you got to imagine that Seth has something in his hand that's pretty powerful, probably Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, almost certainly a Rev. Let's not forget, Seth kept that card on top with the Temple of Enlightenment. Reorganizes his mana. He's got 7 of it in play. Hasn't played a land just yet this turn. But the goal, of course, for the blue-white control player in this matchup is to somehow slide a rev through, gain a little bit of life. Doesn't have to be a giant rev.
Those will come later.
Yeah.
Those just happen naturally.
An Archangel is what it looks like he may have this turn. Yep. And this puts Kemple to the tester right away.
It's time.
Yep. Boros Charm, perhaps? Yeah, see, playing Archangel this turn forces action from Kemple.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing for Seth. If he has something like Negate or Dispel, then that's great. But if he doesn't have anything, perhaps he's better off just waiting. It just depends on what he has.
Kemple going to draw a card here. It's a Temple of Triumph. He's going to put that into play. Time for a scry. Sacred Foundry's going to go to the bottom real quick. Kemple's last card, excuse me. And that temple is tapped, yeah. Seth points that out right away. Kemple's last card is Skullcrack, and he's probably going to have to upkeep this. Yep.
Yeah, and if Seth has anything here, Dissolve, Negate,
Rev.
Syncopate,
Yep.
yeah, Revelation.
Yep. And you see Kemple kind of shrug his shoulders and says, well, I really can't do anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is going to be a rev here for 1, 2, 3, and 4. Manfield's going to go up to 9. He'll go down to 6 from the crack. Now, Ram's trigger is still on the stack, so once that resolves, it's not going to gain any life. And when Archangel attacks, they won't gain any life either. But, you know, the thing here is that Kemple can't kill him next turn, no matter what he draws.
Yeah.
Because Seth is at 6, so Seth is basically safe now. I think the matchup after sideboard is really tough for Chris.
It can be, right? But I'm curious to know if Kemple brought in Chain to the Rocks, or if he felt like that is just another thing that's going to get like Detention Sphere or Banishing Lighted. So maybe it's not worth it, but.
Magma Jet the draw. Kemple going to pass the turn back. Ramble trigger, so that's going to go up to 7. Creature's going to get a little bit bigger. He'll show him a Magma Jet, and he will extend the hand. I thought he might cast it, but no need. He can't come back from this. Seth Manfield is going to win this match over Christopher Kemple. 2-1. Blue-white control will be moving on to the semifinals, and we will have a pretty nice match here in just a minute between Seth and Jared Betcher.